encourage you, have those talks with your kids about relationships, the difference between lust and being inflamed with hormones and self-satisfaction versus what real love is, which is giving of yourself toward another. In this, a marriage is a commitment to each other. And it's a manifestation of love toward each other. That's what this is about. And yes, it does show a lot as and praying for wisdom. Some of the things I want us to understand. This is more intimacy. That follow basically these metaphors show that satisfied three needs of this woman: protection, intimate friendship, and public identification as her beloved. If someone's ashamed to be seen with you in public, maybe you ought to question whether you want to be with that person. Or they don't want to take you, mom, dad, sister, problem. Then so in this aspect of it, it's multi-dimensional. We'll get we go. But love is not oblivious. Beauty sees beyond the blindness of lust. Again, practically speaking, young couples, 18, 20, 30, there's a lot of fraction that's more lust than love. After marriage, those things change. Boys, girls, ladies, having babies, things change. I'm going to go any farther. Would you laugh? But here's where love and lust separate. Love's able to see beyond that blind of lust to who the real person is. The greatest experience of love is when you fall in love with. Let me with you this. Shakespeare wrote, if you know something about sonnet 16, well, this blind love, sonnet 148, I didn't give you all what I thought was really passage. You're right. The eyes put in my head. No correspondence with it. Or if they have, where's my judgment fled? Censures falsely, sight aright. O cunning love, with keeps me blind, lest eyes well seeing thy foul faults should find. Now, if you didn't get that, I see you and your faults, but love blinds me to those. I don't see those faults. What's going on with my head? On my head and my eyes say, look at that, but my heart says, oh, but look at this. And you see, regardless of the age, whether it's in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, and you live to be in your 80s and 90s, when you look at someone you love, you see them with blind eyes. You don't see the gray hair and the wrinkles, and maybe those few extra pounds in certain places, or other maladies. You see something beyond that. You see someone who loves you with the same way that you love them. If you have not found that kind of love, I would implore you to pray that God would help you to find that kind of love. Let's go into the beloved, verses 5 and 6. Starting out first, his love overwhelms her. Stay me with flagons, comfort me with apples. I am sick of love. Well, we need to start out with that sick of love. It's not negative. It's basically saying, you know, I'm lovesick. It means full of and faint from love. It's kind of like the picture of swooning, so to speak. That someone so much that that's all they can think about. Or you love them. Those flagons are containers, like bottles. Now again, if you read from other, they'll say, well, these were a type of fruitcakes. And I'm thinking to myself, you're the fruitcake. You know, these are not figs, and they say that the figs and things were aphrodisiacs, and that's what this has to do with. No, it has to do with flagons of wine. That's all it has to do with. But it has the idea of enjoying each other's presence, an intoxicating aspect that if you're not so old that you can't remember falling in love. I mean, you just want to be together. You'll do stupid stuff together. Maybe you'll spend too much time on the telephone together. You want to do just maybe goofy stuff that you two just want to do. I mean, one of the highlights of the week for us now is just going to Sam's Club, and I take my wife out to dinner there. I used to. You know, they're not putting out any food anymore. It really disappoints me. But we joke about it. You know, we just like to be together in simple things. When you go to 2 Samuel 6:19, you see it's talking about a flagon of wine. When you go to 1 Chronicles 16, it talks about a flagon of wine. When you go to Isaiah 22:24, it talks about vessels of flagons. A flagon was, again, a container. And you see it particularly in Hosea. The Lord said to me, go yet, love a woman, beloved of a friend, yet an adulteress, according to love the Lord toward the children of Israel, who looked to other gods and loved flagons of wine. The Lord is saying, I want you to love someone that's unlovable, like I love Israel, who right now is unlovable and unfaithful to me. And this is, but to give you clarity on that statement, let's go to his love overjoys her in verse 6. His left hand is under my head, and his right hand doth embrace me. All right, this is the statement that really challenges the Elizabethan influence of our nation. Like it's something bad. Yet, I would suspect every married couple has a moment like that. His left hand is under my head. His right hand doth embrace. It's talking about a sense of closeness. And the key word here is intimacy. So as two lovers are growing in the relationship, mutual desire for such an embrace is natural without necessarily being carnal. What makes the difference between a couple unmarried and a couple married is the sense of propriety. You want to please the Lord. Now, again, I think a couple that's in that dating mode can embrace, I remember there's some preachers that didn't even want a guy and a girl to hold hands. I'm a realist. When Teresa and I were teenagers, 17 years old, sitting in church, I was holding her hand where nobody could see it. Like nobody would actually, they didn't actually care, but like, who did we really fool? Yeah, and so, we were real in church with our hands here. But it seemed important at the moment. And so this is natural. And I think everybody expects that. And understanding the admonition that we find in Corinthians, chapter 7, verse 9. It applies to those who are married to each other. Now, you remember the passage Paul wrote to the church, man not to touch a woman. But it's better to marry than to burn. And that was burning within themselves of passion, wanting to be with each other. Well, here's a couple, they want to be with each other. And I hope everyone in this room, married to each other, enjoy that kind of intimacy. But remember, it's intimacy, not expediency. It's something can carry with you year after year after year after year. So his love overjoys her. We go now to love's boundary, verse number 7. And this is a little bit of an odd passage. It starts out showing us the masculinity of the worldly women of the court. Now, the word masculinity, because some of the nouns and things here are masculine. And so as I went through this passage, it became very clear to me what she's talking about. Generally speaking, at least within my generation and those before me, when you think of a man and a woman, and you think of one who is delicate and mild-mannered, and then one who is crude and rude, and the things I've heard as a teenager from older guys about girls, to say it was rude and crude is an understatement. I would feel ashamed to tell you some of the things I heard, how guys think sometimes. Now, today it may have changed. I know women are far more aggressive about things than they were in our generation. But again, generally speaking, there's a rude and crude crowd, and that's how it's kind of basically talking about the daughters of Jerusalem. Let's just go with some of the, I'll elaborate on this. The Shulamite expresses concern regarding the carnality of the daughters of Jerusalem. The way they acted. Around court, they were vulgar too. They were talking about things in a way that was not talked about openly. Basically what a harem would have done. And of course we already know about Solomon and his concubines and 300 wives. Those of the court crew, another word, available. The Shulamite's not oblivious to this. She already knows. So she knows them. And you'll notice it's by the rows and basically, leave her beloved alone. Don't you be flirting with him, and even worse. The roes and the hinds are skittish. And anyone who wants to get close to them must wait patiently. There are antelopes here in New Mexico. One cannot approach them aggressively. Similarly, a man cannot awaken a woman's love clumsily. There's that application. But she's concerned about her beloved. So the roes and the hinds, they resent the joys of love. And in charging these women by those two, basically she's calling on them to swear by love itself rather than by the name of a deity. I charge you by the hinds, the roes and the hinds. And she's not charging him by it. Basically, again, leave my man alone. So then the modesty might, who's from the country, kicks in. Up, nor wake my love till he please. Her beloved's the king. If he's taking a nap and he's in there reclining, don't go in and wake him up in any way. Whether it's practically speaking, physically speaking. Leave him alone. The Shulamite's concerned about him being left alone. She doesn't want other women up her. Wants her beloved's attention for herself. Nor awake my love till he please. Now, in regard to this, I think it'd be good to go over to the book of James. Again, different time than where we're living right now, but not so much different in regard to activities. In the book of James, it says, blessed, happy, is the man that endures temptation. Again, we're living in a day, for those of the male gender, during my generation, you were the aggressive one. You know, we make a joke about it. He chased her until she caught him. That's a pretty good, true statement. We were the aggressor, we thought. And then she caught us. We're living in a day now where women are very aggressive. I even learned that when I worked for UPS. And there would be women coming to the door naked or almost, when they knew it was UPS. And that's pretty good aggression. When he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I'm tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it's finished, bringeth forth death. You want to kill your marriage? Give in to lust. That's what it's talking about, very bluntly. The Shulamite is aware of women seeking to entice her beloved and stakes her claim to basically stand by man. If you'll read Proverbs chapter 6, it says that a man's brought to a piece of bread by a whorish woman. When you read Proverbs chapter 7, it goes through a whole litany of what a harlot is. She's lying in wait. She's fixed herself up. She makes promises about her bed. And of course, the good man's not at home. Challenging. 1 Corinthians 6:18 says, flee fornication. That's what Joseph did. As a very young man, probably still a teenager, there with Potiphar's wife, and she was not only enticing him, she was very aggressive. He decided to flee. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 3 talks about fornication. Said, let it not be once named among you as becometh saints. Mom and Dad, let me encourage you to go over that part with your child. This is God's program, not mine. But fornication, Ephesians 5:3 says, let it all be gone. But 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 3 goes on to say, for this is the will of God. So when we're talking about Song of Solomon and the intimacy, again, it has to be focused within the realms of marriage. That's the one that's honorable and undefiled bed. Even your sanctification, that you should abstain from fornication. So, do you understand, by just looking at these verses, they had a problem in the days of the Apostle Paul, just like we have today. There's something within us. We have a very powerful appetite to please the flesh. God has given us a wonderful way to. It's called marriage. And then within marriage, it has to be worked out properly between the husband and the wife. So basically, in conclusion, we're looking at wonderful symbolism that expresses how Christians should reciprocate the Savior's love, enjoying a lifetime of blissful fellowship with Him. The symbolism is there about our relationship. The practicality is there about a bride and the groom and their relationship. And I think, we would be careful, especially with young adults, to sit down with a matter-of-fact teaching about what marriage, even in its challenging places, should be. Those of you that have been married 20, 30, and 40, and 50 years, you have enough experience of what works and doesn't work to help young couples. But we have such a timidity that we shy away from that when we ought to have practicality. And I know it's a very challenging discussion to have. But about our symbolism and our relationship with the Lord, I gave you this, I think, when we were under the Beatitudes, about hungering and thirsting after righteousness. Psalm 63:1, my soul thirsteth for thee. Because thy loving kindness, verse 3, is better than life, my lips shall praise thee. I'll bless thee while I live. Lift up my hands to thy name. My soul shall be satisfied. Remember thee upon my bed. This has nothing to do with people. It has to do with our relationship with God. Parallel they are. Thee in the night watches, because thou hast been my help. Therefore, in the shadow of things, there's that shadow. Well, my soul followeth hard after thee. Thy right hand upholdeth me. Remember that part about the left hand and the right hand and intimacy? Well, there's almost an implication. Wonderful thing to be saved, to work, to have a intimate relationship with the Lord. I feel like there's a few people in this world that I can be totally open with. A couple preacher friends in particular. Most of all, my wife. That if I share something with her and maybe it casts an unfavorable light upon me, that she'll still love me anyway. If she sees me get a little irritated while driving in Albuquerque, that she'll get over it and she'll love me. In my eyes, she's still the most beautiful woman in the world. And I want it to always be. And I hope each one of you feel that way about someone you love. Learning to love according to God's plan is one of the greatest things you could ever learn in this lifetime. Like for every head bowed, every eye closed. Christian marriage counselors say that we are at a place where 1 out of every 2 Christians who are married to each other, those marriages are ending up in divorce. I'm sorry if you've gone through a divorce. I mean that. I'm sorry if you haven't been loved the way the Lord teaches us we ought to love one another. I would encourage you to do the best you can to help your children and grandchildren to learn the lessons of Song of Solomon. But above all, I would encourage you to fall deeper in love with the Lord Jesus Christ, where He means everything to you, where you can honestly whisper with your head upon your pillow at night, Lord, I just want to say I love you. I truly love you for the love you've shown me. That you'll meditate upon what that love means. Heaven took on our flesh, yet without sin. Went to the cross, suffered, lived a perfect life, but suffered horrendously by His own creation. He commended His love toward us while we were yet sinners. What a wonderful knowledge to have that we can love Him because He first loved us. 1 John 4:19. There's nobody in this world that will ever love you like He loved you. And there's times when something happens to one of my loved ones, if I have opportunity, whether I say it to them or just to myself, Lord, I know you love them more than I do. That gives me a sense of peace. Father, speak to hearts. I pray these things in Christ's name.